Hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here, and this is an ASMR audio video for holiday stress. Now you can listen to this at any time. There's going to be a big event or a family gathering, whatever holiday or celebration that you are part of in your community. Because I know that these times can be some of the most stress-inducing of all, especially for those of us that might come from a difficult situation, or we might be from different minority groups, or have a disability, or other mental health issues or conditions. And first of all, I wanted to start this video by saying that if you've clicked on this video, you have come to the right place. There's no judgment here, there's no guilt. You can feel however you feel. This is a space where you're allowed to have your feelings and hold them, and you don't have to feel ashamed or worried about being ungrateful or unkind, because remember that our feelings do not define us, our actions do. And I find that a way to live well and make good choices and act in a way that is fair, loving and kind is first to come to terms with our feelings. In my experience, denying them or burying them out of guilt or shame is only going to cause more harm, because only once you can look at your feelings and accept them and know it's okay to feel them, can you start to figure them out. Now, a lot of families are difficult. There are so many different types of families. There's no blueprint, and these things are complicated, and our feelings and relationships are complicated because we're human. Many people find holiday events stressful, even though it's not something people tend to talk about. Some of us may be forced to spend time with people that we dislike, or who scare us, or who make us angry, who we find annoying, unpleasant, who we might feel unsafe with. And some of us might feel that we have to wear a metaphorical mask to hide who we are, to perform a part, a certain role, to make everything okay for everyone. Some of us might be nervous about showing ourselves, that certain topics might come up and that we might get upset or even argue and then feel guilt after that, whether we deserve to or not. There's so much pressure to have a perfect Christmas or other significant occasion, and sadly, sometimes this pressure, this ideal, comes at the expense of reality and the feelings of everybody involved. You may feel on edge, tense, like you're second-guessing everyone and everything. You may feel like you can't relax, like you're afraid to let your guard down. You may feel you need to hide your sexuality, and to all those people out there, you must do whatever you feel is necessary to make sure that you are safe and okay. I am with you 100%, and I wish that I could make things better for you. And I truly, truly believe that if you're someone who at this point in time doesn't feel safe to be who you are, doesn't feel safe to live your life in the way that you wish, I believe that one day you will find those people. They might not be blood relations. You might build your very own family of people that you care about, and people who care about you and who respect you and accept you for who you are. And remember, because I know that this can feel hopeless, that is out there for you, and one day that will be the life that you are living. It won't always feel this way, and one day in the future, I believe and I hope that you'll be able to talk about these things with the people you love, with your new family, whether that be people you haven't met yet, or maybe members of your family who right now might not understand and might need to learn more before you feel comfortable. But I believe you'll be able to talk about these feelings, and you'll be able to use them to make sure that other people feel better. It's also wrong that you should feel that you need to hide these integral parts of yourself. But I also want you to know that you're not betraying your truth or your identity if you feel that it's safer to keep them to yourself. It isn't a lie, it's safety. It's you choosing who you share information with, and those are all part of our boundaries. Some of us might come from situations where boundaries feel alien to us, that saying no or withholding private information would even feel rude, like we were attacking people. But nobody is owed you. You have the right to choose what you disclose, when, and to who. And also remember that you know who you are better than anyone else ever will. How can anyone possibly know how you feel, your experiences, your memories, all of those things that make you who you are? Other people may deny your identity or your reality, but remember that their thoughts, as harmful and hurtful as they are, don't hold any weight. You know who you are, and all of us are on a journey in our lives to find that person inside of us, whether that's through sexuality, gender identity, ideology, and that is a wonderful journey to be part of. And as horrible as it might feel now, I hope that you hold on to the fact that you are brave enough and open-minded enough to think about all of these things, to reconsider what you were made, the things you were taught to think, the things that you were told that you are. There is such a strength in that, because you'll probably realize by now that some people never do reach that point. They're too scared to. They're too afraid to. They're too frightened to reflect on themselves. They might have been taught that it was selfish to do so. But remember that you are not those people. You are on this journey. You are an adventurer and an explorer, and you're a critic, and you're a thinker. You ask questions not just of the world and of systems and rules, but you ask questions of yourself. You are strong enough and brave enough to question yourself and your thoughts and your beliefs and your feelings. And I want you to know that you are among friends here in this space, because to anyone who's watching or listening to this video, I think many of us are on a similar journey, be that in terms of sexuality, gender, politically, religion, morality, our values, our family systems, even those of us that are from the most supportive and loving and healthy environments. will be shaped in part by our societies, by ideas that we were simply born into and had absorbed before we were old enough to question them. This is a journey that we are all on together, and nobody has the right to tell you who you are or who you can be. I wish that we all had the love and validation that we deserve, that every single one of us on this earth deserves. But what I hope offers a little reassurance is that you are the authority here. You are the expert on you. And it is enough that you know who you are, or that you have ideas about who you are, or that you are on that journey, or that you're working it all out. Remember that our society can tell us that it's selfish to put ourselves first, but this message from society can be harmful too. We should never hurt others, treat others as lesser or worthless. But we must also understand and accept that setting boundaries, holding our realities, and being able to say no is not selfish. Those things are not wrong. You may have been taught to feel that those things are wrong, but they aren't. To be selfish is to raise yourself at the expense of others, but we are all entitled to our boundaries. Remember that. Love does not mean not having boundaries. Family doesn't mean not having boundaries. And what I have learned is that when it comes to love and to family and to those closest to us, boundaries are all the more important. They make these relationships special and full of trust because we uplift each other, we listen, and we accept that we are all on our own journeys, and that when the time is right, when we feel comfortable enough, we may choose to share things with the ones we love. Choosing to share those things, to me, feels quite sacred. One of the most intimate and precious moments between people, I believe, is when we see each other and respect each other and feel safe around each other. When we feel safe enough to share those parts of ourselves that we may have been brought up to hide or to be ashamed of or afraid of. To me, that is what love means. And I don't just mean romantic love, I mean love in the truest sense, which is between people who respect each other, care for each other, want the best for each other, and want to help each other become their very best selves. Now, many of you here, I imagine, will care a lot about justice and social issues, about kindness and compassion, about defending the oppressed and standing up for causes, because you might see yourself in those causes. It might be that you were an underdog, or mistreated, or invalidated in some way. And something that I hope brings you comfort is that the way that you have responded to these feelings is not to have become cold and hard and cruel. You have applied it to the world beyond yourself, and you have decided that you don't want anybody, no matter where they are in the world, their religion, their gender, their sexuality. You have decided that you're not going to allow that to happen to another soul, ever. And I hope you realise how incredibly strong that makes you. Now, during the holidays or family occasions, birthdays, get-togethers, no matter what the occasion is, things can become very, very difficult, especially if you are somebody who feels these issues very strongly and you feel a deep sense of justice and injustice. But what you have to remember in these situations is that first of all, you need to be safe. And I don't just mean that in a physical sense, I mean that in a mental sense. You don't have to fight every single battle, not if that will hurt you, not with people who will not listen, who will not see you as an equal, not with people who are not willing to converse. My personal belief is that we should seek to reach out with those we disagree with, to try and find some common ground, to show compassion to everyone, even our enemies, to try and understand where they're coming from, to try and see if their behaviours come from pain. And even if we can't save those people, in knowing that mindset and showing that compassion, it may be that we are able to stop that mindset growing in the future. But also remember that these discussions can only bear fruit when there is mutual respect. In some families or situations, you may feel baited into an issue. You may feel that you are forced into a corner to defend your very identity and your very being. You may feel duty-bound to speak your opinion for the sake of other oppressed groups, and from there you may end up feeling attacked. I'm not advising you to stay away from politics or ideas that matter to you. I think that the feelings you have for these causes and for justice are so precious and so heroic and so courageous, because so many people will go through their lives allowing these things to happen to others because it's easier. And that's a very sad fact of life. But what I am saying is that you don't always have to engage. If you have that gut feeling that you are being baited into something dangerous or something that will put you in harm's way, you may know or recognize this. I think sadly a lot of us do, even if we don't want to accept it, that sometimes we are being drawn into a conversation in which there is no way to escape unscathed. The intention isn't to listen or to exchange ideas. Sometimes the intentions can be to humiliate, to create a reaction. So remember to ask yourself if those around you are engaging in good faith or not. Only you will know that. Only you can make that judgment. But you absolutely, as a priority, must be safe. Remember also that you are not always required to have such conversations. You are allowed to decide to have the conversation on a different day, on different terms. Being a minority or an ally or in a similar situation within a family dynamic does not mean that you are required to engage in debate at any time. Another problem that so many people find in these situations is that you might end up feeling alone. It's so often the way that when we're in larger groups we feel more and more lonely and less connected. We might notice the difference between ourselves and others. We might feel different and alien. And some of us may feel exhausted from trying to keep up, to smile, to perform, to mask, to make sure the day goes smoothly. It's tiring, it's completely exhausting, and some people simply don't understand what that does, how it can take days to recover again. We may find ourselves forcing laughter, but feeling like we're drifting further out. We might feel unwanted or judged, and some of us, especially those of us that are neurodiverse, might find it baffling and frustrating and upsetting and confusing that people aren't being themselves, that people are performing, that words may not be sincere, that arguments and fractures that you know to exist are covered on these occasions. They're papered over, and you may find it hard to play along. If you are neurodiverse, and for others who aren't, but who feel similarly, it can feel fake or even like a betrayal. Some of us may feel, or sadly be made to feel, that if we cannot keep up or play along, we are in some way guilty of sullying the occasion. We may feel required to perform happiness and even perform love in a way that feels untruthful. These occasions are complicated for so many reasons, in so many dynamics. You may be someone that picks up on undercurrents, that reads tone or emotions, that is well aware of the distance between words spoken and what is being transmitted or received. You are not alone. You may have become quite used to this. It may even be second nature to you to do this from your life experiences. Many people from similar situations and dynamics are exactly the same. Perhaps you learned to be aware of emotions, to figure things out, to be hypervigilant, to try to perceive danger or stress in advance. And this is sadly common, and it's exhausting. You might wonder why you feel so drained, even on an occasion where you might be required to do nothing but socialize. You might wonder why you get so tired. You might even be cruel to yourself, to berate yourself and ask why you find this so very exhausting. But the reason that it's so exhausting is that you, your mind and your body, you're doing so much more than just socializing. You are constantly observing. You are in constant stress mode, even if everything goes well, because you may have learned that things can turn at any second. You may have learned that you must be vigilant. For those who come from unpredictable backgrounds, the exhaustion of this constant anxiety can have a huge impact on our lives, even in periods where all might seem to be well, or there are no incidents. But you are not paranoid. Trust in your body. It may be that nothing does happen, but you're not wrong for feeling this way, and you're not to blame that this was something you developed to help you cope, because that is what our body and our mind are always trying to do, to protect us, just as they would have done years and years ago when the predators and stressors we had to keep an eye on were wild animals. Today's stressors can be so much more complicated and so much harder to point out to others, to even explain. You may feel guilt for being on edge. You might feel silly especially if the day or event passes without an incident. But you mustn't then take it out on yourself. You mustn't invalidate yourself or convince yourself that it was unreasonable or crazy. Only you will know your history and your background. And I think many of us need to be kinder to ourselves. We're not lazy, we're not lightweights for becoming exhausted, and we are not unkind to be on edge. I think we know ourselves deep down, and we can all reflect individually on why our bodies and our minds might react to danger, even when the danger never arrives. Forgive yourself for this. Some of us might be in situations where if we show signs of who we are, our identities, our truth, or even our illnesses, we are treated as burdens, or like we are ruining an occasion, as though we are selfish for having needs. But this is a lie. I'm sorry if you're someone who recognizes that. If you're someone who is taught that very young, I know how it messes with your mind going forward, how it makes you doubt yourself, how it makes you view yourself so negatively, like the real you, the honest you, the ill you is lesser or shameful or embarrassing or unlovable or annoying or not living up to expectations. But those are exterior attitudes and judgments, and they have nothing at all to do with your real worth. Sadly, they can sometimes show us more about the way those around us view themselves. They may fear their own vulnerabilities or view difference as weakness. But remember that we know better. If we understand that this is the way they think, we can see that it isn't about us, really. Remember that confident people want others to thrive. They do not demand a performance in exchange for love or even respect. You are enough as you are. I'm sorry if the people around you can't see it. And I know you might not believe me, but trust me when I say that you are enough, and that it's them that are sadly lacking. You are brave enough to know who you are or who you want to be, whether that be your sexuality, your gender identity, whether that's surrounding disability. But being different doesn't make you less, and you are allowed to be different to them. Being different doesn't mean that you can't love them. You're allowed to be you. Hold on to that. If you can, even pity those who think that way, because they are so often afraid of their own individuality. Perhaps in their childhoods, they might have had to push their true selves aside. Maybe vulnerability and truth scares them. Or you might even remind them of that part of themselves they had to put aside all those years ago. And they might envy you deep down for holding on to yourself in a way that they couldn't or weren't ever allowed to. But this is about them. It's about their judgments and their values. Remember that as unpleasant as it can feel, it's not really about you. It's about what you represent to them. And take heart in the fact that at some level, that demonstrates that you are choosing your own path. That idea might frighten or intimidate them, make them jealous. It might make them resent you, even. But again, these are their issues. These are their values. These are their judgments. You don't hold their values. You don't think the way that they do. And why would you want to? You know far better than to judge somebody for such ridiculous things, when surely the only reason we should judge each other is based on the kindness and compassion that we show to others. The people that we should judge are those that are unkind, cruel, oppressive. We don't resent people simply for being different, for being themselves. That's not our value system. That's not the world that we want to live in. And that's not the world we will live in. When you get out of that situation and you find your people, you will find others who share that value system. These feelings of difference that you have, although it feels lonely, are a sign that you're separate. Conditioning hasn't worked on you. You're too strong at the core. You are too strong to be raised into something and simply accept it as it is. It shouldn't upset people if you're ill or if you're different or have different needs. Being yourself isn't an insult to others, and it really shouldn't be. Insecure people can read it that way, but that's their interpretation, and that's nothing at all to do with you. You're allowed to simply exist. And again, remember that you're so much stronger. Hold on to that, because you know who you are or who you want to be, and you are willing to go on that journey to figure it out. You know in your heart that you're not someone who ever wants to prevent others from exploring who they are, from being their true selves, their best selves. You're not someone who would ever want to be an obstacle to kindness, to compassion, or to freedom. That's not who you are. So be kind, be respectful, and be loving where you can. But also remember that wonderful quote: don't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Remember that being kind and respectful and loving to others shouldn't mean having to deny or harm yourself. You may have been raised to see loving others as being linked in some way to your own sacrifice, but real love is mutual. It shouldn't ever diminish you. Try to be mindful. Take a moment if you can. If things get intense, maybe go to the bathroom, maybe even take a walk. Take some deep breaths. Listen to some music that reminds you of who you are and what you love. Ground yourself. Center yourself and root yourself. Remind yourself of your values. Remember what matters to you. You may feel invalidated, like the world is topsy-turvy, but that's just your surroundings. That's exterior, it's just noise. Take some deep breaths. Think of a person that inspires you. If you need to vent, maybe write those things down. You could make some notes on your phone or in a notebook, and that way you can keep them for later. You don't have to deal with them in that moment. You can hold them so that you don't forget, but your priority in the moment is getting through the day. You are allowed to put yourself first, and that, for many people, will mean choosing not to engage. It will mean choosing not to walk into the familiar trap that is set. You are not betraying yourself or anyone else by choosing safety and to protect yourself, be that mentally or physically. I believe in you, and I know that you can get through this because you are an incredible, brave, strong person with the courage to be yourself, or with the aim to be yourself in a society where that's punished. You are so much stronger than you realise, and I hope that one day when you're out of this situation, you'll be able to look back and feel so proud and realise just how incredibly resilient you were and are. Wishing you lots of love, always and forever. Be strong, my friend. You can do this.